Hey guys, Ryan Lutz here. Thanks for stopping by. Today I want to go over a little bit more of some advanced tuning techniques that you can do to your tires, to your foams, to your wheels, different things that you can do to go faster on any given surface that you go to allow you to adjust to the changing conditions. So first thing we're going to talk about is gluing foams. That's what you might have heard of before that people are doing. I've actually found a different way to do it. Thanks to LutzRC Jr. who showed me this technique. I use carpet tape. So link to this is in the description below. But what I do is it's a double-sided tape, super thin, almost no weight to it at all. And I cut it. It comes perfectly to where I will cut it in half. So I use a very sharp X-Acto knife. So a nice fresh blade, go right along the center, cut it in half. And what that allows is the buggy wheel. You simply can open it up, place it on, and then go across the whole center of your tire here. And then give it a quick cut. Then what you do to mount your foam to that is you peel back just a small portion of it, and then take your foam and place it, start it on the side that's not peeled back yet. Kind of lift it over top of that little tab that you just pulled off. Try to keep the tab sticking out, that'll help you momentarily. And then you want to center the foam, so make sure it's centered the best you can. Where it's already stuck on the tape a little bit, you might have to do a little bit of a lift. Otherwise, get it centered. And once you feel like you've got it all centered and pressed in, take that tab and then start pulling it towards you. Now keep it flat and kind of pull it against the rim a little bit. This will help it from tearing, so hopefully it won't tear on you. And kind of lift back the foam as you're pulling. And then you get to the end. You're left with the scrap. Press down all the way around. Maybe a small correction. Just kind of press it into place. And there you have it. So now you're glued basically to the wheel. Now the benefit of using the tape instead of super glue is that you can reuse the foam. So this will actually come off. So here I have an example of a foam that I actually used previously, and I can feel the residue on the inside that had some tape on it. So this was taped and allows me to reuse it again, whereas the glue is going to make it to where that foam is no longer usable. So I think that's pretty cool, pretty unique, and thanks to LutzRC Jr. for that tip. And that's what we do for glued/tape foam. Now, when to do this, when to use it. Now on my Kyosho, I've really liked this on the rear most of the time. So unless the track's loose, as long as I have a decent amount of grip up to full grip, I do this on the rear. And I feel like it just stabilizes the rear. It allows me to know where it's going. You know, the foam's not shifting at all back and forth in the wheel or in the tire itself. So it gives you that stable platform in the rear. You just know where it's going to go. On the front, I only do it if the grip's really high. Having the front allow the foam to still kind of move around and allow it to expand gives a little bit of give in the corners. It's less twitchy. If you were to put the foam on and tape it down to the front tires as well, what that does is it really makes it very direct. When you give that little bit of movement of steering, it's going to follow that immediately. So it's very twitchy. If you can be really smooth, it can be good. But otherwise, not doing it allows it to have a little bit of a give, whereas the rear, if you do it, locks it in a little bit better. It kind of gives it a little bit of a slide, but it's very controlled. It's just under control more. And so I really like it in the rear on my Kyosho. Now I think I've tried it on some other people's cars, like blind testing, and possibly on pillow balls, they might not like it as much on the rear. You're gonna have to go try it yourself. But for the Kyosho, definitely give it a try on the rear. And then if you're on really high bite, like I was this past weekend at SMB Raceway, going on the front as well, having it, because the grip was so high, it just made the car easier to drive everywhere. You can drive it harder because the foam's not shifting around. So The other times, yeah, so when the grip's really high, front and rear, it also keeps it from expanding. It allows you to run a softer tire also, so compounds can come into play. So if you're running, say the grip level, you want to run a little bit softer tire, you want to err on a softer compound to try to get that grip, but the grip is kind of high. You can run maybe one stage softer compound. If you tape the foam, it'll stabilize that tire just a little bit more and allow you to run that softer compound, maybe getting you a little bit more grip. So that's something to play with as well. Okay, next, another thing that we do with the foams is, as you might have saw on that used one, is put holes in them. So what I do is I take that tire punch and I put it to the biggest setting. So I go to the 4.5 on this AKA tire punch here. Make sure it lines up, and I'll show you on a new foam. And so one way I do it is in the center. So I'll just go over to that center point, give it a good pinch it in, and then take that out. And we'll go all the way around the tire as such. Now this does a couple things. So foams, there is some variance in sizes of foams. And so if you feel like your foam's thicker or a little extra full, you might want to do this to kind of bring the size down a little bit. This will flatten the profile a little bit. It'll soften that center point a bit. So having that hole in the center, do that for kind of tracks that are getting a little bit rougher. If you want a little bit flatter profile of your tire, that'll keep your car flatter going through corners and whatnot. And I just feel what that does is you figure once you hit a bump, that foam's going to kind of go in and work into that hole and kind of just give up some more energy. It's going to allow it to bump handle a little bit better. Now, things that you can do if the track's super rough. Now, if you're on a really, really loose track, you're just searching for any grip you can find, and it's also bumpy. A lot of times those looser tracks are bumpy as well. I'll do a different kind of pattern for my holes. And what I'll do is I'll switch to the number 4 sized hole, and I'm going to do 2 holes. I'm going to do one on either side of this middle rib. As such. And then I'll even do a 3/5. Now again, you can play with these sizes. You can do what works for you. But in this one, I kind of make a number 5 on a dice pattern. So let me go back to the 4. And I mean, you can do bigger holes, you can do smaller holes. I mean, you can really play with this, fine tune it, find something that really works for you. You know, I go to different tracks every week, so I can't really dial it in per se on just one particular track. I get the best that I can on any given track, so I have these kind of basic things that I go through. So that's kind of the pattern that I'll make all the way around. And this will really soften up the foam. This can really help in the bump handling. It can really help on, you know, those looser tracks, getting that little bit more grip. Now, what I was saying about different foam sizes, so out of the package, you know, all the brands, they have a little bit of a variance. Sometimes you get a batch that was a little thicker, sometimes a little thinner. So sometimes what we'll do is sometimes you can visually see it, and it's a decent amount. But I can also put them onto the tire or on the wheel itself and take calipers and I'll measure. So we actually have measurements that we kind of prefer for certain conditions. So you can see this one's, when I go to one side and kind of skim the other side, you know, you're around 107.5 to 108, maybe on the high side. They're not perfect. Okay, and then on this one that seemed thinner, do a quick little measurement here. You can see it's much smaller in the 104, you know, the 104 and a half range. So definitely smaller. Now what we've found is for most of those looser tracks, the loamier tracks, bumpier tracks, the smaller foam kind of feels a little bit better. Around that 104 to 105 range seems to be ideal for most conditions. If you have the fuller foam, that seems better on your higher traction, on when the track's smoother. It gives you a more, you know, like think of like an LutzRC or a Thornhill. The thicker foam, the fuller foam, just kind of gives you more stability through corners. You kind of know where the car is going to go all the time. Whereas the smaller one, your rubber might move around on it a little bit more. So, and the smaller one might be an occasion to use the tape or glue also. So that's that part as far as the size of the foam. So if your foam is thicker and you do want it to be smaller, we can sometimes put them on a wheel and go up to get some sandpaper and put it on something that you can spin up the tire and actually true down the foam a little bit to shrink it down, or put it on like a belt sander. So there are certain things you can do if you want to really get into that. But otherwise, just kind of be aware, maybe have some extra foams on hand, so maybe match sizes, maybe even do a different size front and rear. It's something to really play with. Definitely, there's so many things that go so beyond just simply gluing up your tire like the previous video, so you can really dial it in. And then regarding the truck, we'll show the truck really quick. So the same thing for the truck. I have how it's cut in half. I use both sides for the truck. So we'll go around here. Hopefully I have enough left on the spool to show you. Okay. All right. So yeah, the truggy. I was a little bit off on that one, so generally right against that ridge, they fit just about perfect to have both of them there. I went a little bit over it. All right, so for the truck, you're gonna lift opposite sides like that and like that. And then same thing, you're gonna kind of start it on the opposite side of where you've lifted. Work the foam around it, lift it up over the spot that's stuck, kind of pull your tab, so you have tabs sticking out of both sides, and then work on centering your foam. And then you can start, pulling it back. And again, I won't bore you with it, same process. And then your foam is taped down, glued down. Now truck, one thing I'll do sometimes a little bit more often is the rear, again, the whole thing. But then on the front, I've actually taken some of these and I cut it down even finer. So instead of it being straight in half, I have one side that has 2 more rows. So this thinner one, I sometimes do it on buggy too, but on trucks more common on the inside. So not the outside, but the inside row here, I'll do a thin row. And so this is what I call taping the inside, or gluing down the inside only. So same exact principle, just go along the inside. So what this is doing, again, it's kind of allowing you to keep the foam from shifting, because the foam, whenever you take them, if you ever open up a tire that's been used, the foam is kind of black all around that whole thing because the foam is actually spinning in the wheel itself or in the tire itself. When you tape it down, you can actually see the grooves on the foam itself, and that means it hasn't shifted. Now I feel that taping it down also, another thing, it gives you more forward drive. So if you ever feel like you're lacking forward drive, this can help that for sure. Now doing it on the inside only, you keep it from shifting, so you get that forward drive, but it still allows expansion. And sometimes that expansion it can help with steering, it can help a little bit with top end, it can just kind of give still a little bit of give to the front end. It doesn't make it so direct, but it gives you some of the benefits of having it taped down. So just on the very inside is also something you can consider doing on the front. And I've actually done it on the rear too. Just again, something to play with, think about. So I think that's about it. We've discussed the foams, the sizes of the foams, taping versus not taping. High grip is when you pretty much are going to want to be doing the taping stuff. Softer foams are kind of when you want to do the lower grip tracks. And then I guess one more thing we can go over is a little thing I do for, again, that super loose track that you're just looking for any kind of grip you can get, is these insides of these wheels. You have all these ribs in here. And so what I'll do is I'll take some snips, side cuts, and actually go right along the edge, flat against the wheel, and just give it a snip part way down. Hopefully we can get the right angle at this. And then once you go all the way around, you go back into it, and then go right to where you cut at the bottom. And pull that little, like shark tooth. Be careful, they can be sharp. Also be careful, because they sometimes, if you get it just right, will fly out. So you might have to take your X-Acto and kind of cut it out a little bit better. But you could also start it that direction and finish it this direction. You can see this is that's what you're doing. It's hard to see, sorry. So you're just taking that little bit of edge. So that's softening your foam, softening your wheel, giving a little bit more flex, and that can be something that can help aid with your grip levels on those tracks where you just don't have any. So hopefully that will help you. If you have any other questions, anything else I can answer regarding this portion of setting up your tires, let me know in the comments below. I appreciate you watching, and you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.